We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
Oh yeah, dude. There's some Nephilim.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us fight and be slaves. And everybody's just walking around, head in the clouds, and won't awaken to a dead in the grave. But then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days.
Everybody is slaves, only some are aware that the government releasing poison in the
Welcome back,
It was a typo. I swear to God, it was a typo.
It's not a typo. You don't know how to spell Manchurian. I don't know how to spell Manchurian. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad. I am David Lee Corbo, a.k.a. The Raven. That is TopLobsta, the father of disinformation. We are wearing fantastic shirts, and we'll tell you where to get them eventually. But first, this episode is going to go live exclusively to patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad for a number of reasons. One, because we like money, but two, because this is going to be a very sensitive topic.
I've been thinking, as William tells us, like what it's about. I'm like, how am we we're going to air it in some form or fashion?
Well, of course, yeah.
On
And
YouTube.
YouTube is not going to be the place to view this. There will be a version available on YouTube, Rumble, Patreon, places like that, the audio feed. That's where you're going to want to listen to it. Patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad. You get a bunch of perks, including early access to Bohemian Grove tickets when they release. If you watched the previous episode with Ed, we talked a little bit about what it's going to look like when it does. So Bohemian Grove 4 is coming. Also, a discount code off of merchandise from TopLobsta.com where you can pick up lots of dope shirts. Acidic Jew. Can we Acidic Jew it up?
No, we'll show them this.
Honestly, these aren't available yet, but we did it, ladies and gentlemen. Nephilim Death Squad Hawaiian shirts. It is happening.
You asked, we did it.
You asked, and we done did it. We got you guys. These are actually fantastic shirts, and it's always hot in here. And I'm nice and cool now because these things are light and breathable. Nephilim Death Squad Hawaiian shirts. I got the pineapple one. That was, by the way, you know what that means?
This is a very serious
That's right.
episode.
We can't tell you what the pineapple means. Guys, joining us today is William Ramsey. We're going to talk about some pretty rough. But before we do, William, can you please let everybody know where they can find your work?
I have a podcast in the top 0.5%, maybe the top 20,000 podcasts in the world, titled William Ramsey Investigates. It's investigative journalism. I cover a lot of topics. I have guests. I do my own shows. I've written 5 books, which you can buy on my website or on Amazon. And I have 5 documentaries on Patreon because Amazon refuses to hold them or stream them. So I've decided to stream it on my Patreon. But yeah, this is kind of a sensitive topic. I don't think certain corporations would not be happy with the subject matter.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if midway through this, we end up getting pulled off of YouTube anyway before we hit our half-hour mark. But either way, it's going to live on Patreon. It's going to live on Rumble. It's going to live on our RSS feed. Right now, we are in the throes of it's PSYOP season once again.
Oh, yeah.
It really is. They're pulling the on everything. And speaking of pulling the we've got a lot of really suspicious, as we do. This thing kind of happens. It comes and goes in waves, and right now the waves are huge and they are crashing. And every sort of violent incident is chock full of idiosyncrasies, things that just don't add up. All these strange. I mean, there's so much high strangeness surrounding them. I don't know where you want to begin on this topic, but just for the audience to prime them. We're going into this discussion under the presupposition that these are Manchurian candidates, as you can see by the way that we spelled it in the title.
More product placement. Yeah, free range, ultra chickens.
There we go. So that's what we suspect. We were having a little discussion before the show started. When you take the ultra program and you scale it up. What does that look like? And maybe we're all victims of it to some extent. But these individuals that are plastered all over the news, all over the Mockingbird media, where do you want to begin on this topic?
I think that's a great intro. There's a lot going on. Like this is like a present day environment, just like you said, but it goes back, and we were talking in the pre-show, it goes back to really the beginning of all these kind of craziness and shooters started in the 60s, and the assassins or pseudo assassins or patsies really is a watermark, I think, was it in this film, which is a very strange film in its inception, how it was filmed, and then it disappeared for 25 years. It was literally taken off the market. The original, it wasn't reshown until 1997 or 1998. So it really kind of is out of the public consciousness. And I can see why, because the book is very well written. It's a very well made film, in my opinion, with a lot of like top level stars at that time. Frank Sinatra and Janet Leigh came out of filming Psycho, for people who know.
Frank Sinatra was in a Manchurian Candidate film. That I did not know that. What a big grab.
He was actually more than just the star. He was the producer and was really the drive to put the book together into a film. He was actually the core person. One of the interesting things about Sinatra is that he had a very close friendship with JFK. So there's a weird overlap between this fictional film and movie and the JFK arc, and we're coming up on is November 22nd, 63. So we're nearing the 60 something anniversary. And I think that one of the reasons that Sinatra said, or the reason why he took the film, because he owned the production company, why he took it out of distribution, is about the eerie similarities between the film and the JFK.
It seems like, given how long the film was buried, maybe they revealed a little bit too much. I wonder what that was. I wonder if that was Sinatra trying to do a solid. I mean, I doubt it, right? He's a Hollywood elite, music industry elite, and
I mean, I would say like Hollywood, but also mob tied.
Yeah,
you're talking like Vegas in the 60s, in the 60s, in the 40s, right?
Yeah, he was mob from the beginning. His parents were involved in the mafia, so it was kind of suppressed, a lot of his mob stuff, but I think it's all been exposed now that he had very close ties to major mob figures. And I think that was one of the things that actually at the end drove Sinatra and JFK apart, is that he was exposed that he was in the mob or various close associates, and his brother's prosecuting mobsters like Marcello, right? Who was in New Orleans. He was the New Orleans kind of mob boss. So it was kind of an unnerving thing to have that publicized. But they were close friends, and actually the green light for the film actually took place in a discussion between, this is like verified by multiple sources, took place at Hannesport, if you remember or know the Kennedy kind of compound, where, I mean, this is really present too, because it ties into RFK Jr., who's in the Trump administration right now. And depending how much time and how far along we get into the thing, we can talk about the death of RFK, JFK's brother, because it ties into the Manchurian Candidate. So the okay to get it started, it was, I think they had $2.2 million to film. Sinatra was going to be in the lead role. They got this guy to play Raymond Shaw. His name was Lawrence. I can't remember his last name. It was Lawrence Harvey. Angela Lansbury played the witch. And at one point, this film was in the AFI, American Film Institute's top 100 films. So it's considered to be kind of a masterpiece. That's pretty rarefied air for this film to be up in there. It's dropped out, but I think it was from 1990s. In the 90s, it was ascertained to be like one of the great films. But
nice Sinatra quote there as well. I appreciate that. The rarefied air. That's a
there you go.
Yeah. Where the air is rarefied.
I don't know. I'm uncultured. I've never. I can't remember. I know his music catalog. I mean his Christmas catalog.
He had a lot of friends. He had mafia friends. He actually was very much involved in JFK when he was elected in like the celebrations. He was in like at Sammy Davis Jr., who's an part of the Rat Pack, if you guys know that or remember that. He said that Frank Sinatra had a direct line into the White House. He just really knew Kennedy. Sinatra did. So it's a very close thing, and you'll see there are themes within this book and the film that play into fact. So like one of the presentations I've done about the Manchurian Candidate is fiction to fact, because the fictional narrative resembles fact. This is at the time when the US was really gearing up and doing heavy duty research into mind control, right? Most people know the name Ultra started in 1953. Before that, there was a lecture by Dulles, who was the head of the CIA, that he did something called brain warfare. He gave a speech to his fellow Princeton alumni. He graduated from Princeton, about the necessity of doing this in the context of the Cold War. Like, the Russians are doing this, we need to do this. And you'll see that kind of same theme in this film, where the main character, who is Raymond Shaw, played by Lawrence Harvey, the Manchuria reference is that Manchuria was above the Korean War. So the Korean War was a conflict between the so-called free world and the communists. And literally the entire country, there was no building over like 1 story high that was left. They bombed the out of Korea. They literally razed Korea to the ground. And a lot of the guys who were involved in bombing, like Europe and Japan, were involved. So Curtis LeMay, who ties into the JFK, is involved in all this stuff. But the Korean War is from 50 to 53. And then it's weird that the war stopped and then Ultra started. But Manchurian references this area above the Korean Peninsula. Manchukuo could be called that, but that's how it got its name. And so it's in the narrative of the film, they're taken. It actually has, what's interesting too is that they have occult numerology. Condon, who's the writer, was very well referenced. Like, it's pretty impressive. Like, I find his frame of reference to be very extensive. But he included like 11s and 77s and all the stuff. So the 11-member paratroop goes into Manchuria. And I think one of the most famous sequences that was filmed, this was filmed by the actual director is Frankenheimer, who is close friends with RFK. Like, so you see this weird tie in between people involved in this and real politicians. Like Sinatra's friends with JFK. And Frankenheimer's friends with RFK. Actually, before RFK got in 1968, he was staying at Frankenheimer's house. So the guy who's directing the Manchurian Candidate is that close to political events.
Jeez, that's crazy.
This is unbelievable. You can't even believe it, because he is at the Ambassador Hotel. Frankenheimer, who directed the Manchurian Candidate, and according to Ed Sanders, who wrote a book about Mansons and stuff, he's a great researcher. He said, according to his information, Sirhan brushed by Frankenheimer before going into the pantry. And then, and so Frankenheimer's like, is this really true? Did what we filmed really come to pass? Because once you start researching Sirhan, you realize there's no way he could have killed RFK. RFK got very close to the back of his head. This is another headshot, just like JFK, right? Like somebody wants him dead.
Yeah.
It's like the Noguchi is a really interesting character because he's the medical examiner in Los Angeles, but he totally independent. So like the media will say something, and Noguchi's like, no, she was behind his head. It was an inch away. It didn't come from the front, and nobody in that small area, that pantry, saw Sirhan get within 3 feet of RFK. And the person who most people who've researched it in depth, there's great books out there, Lisa Peace and Tim Tate and another guy I can't remember. They all said that the killer's most likely this guy who was kind of put into the environment as a security guard, and his name was Thane Eugene Caesar. He like disappeared and like went to like Philippines and dropped off the face of the earth. But that's the interesting tie between Frankenheimer and RFK and JFK, is these guys are around this, where these kind of strange characters are involved. And it goes back to the Manchurian narrative, which is these guys are brought in. They're brought into this thing. They're exposed to, some kind of you can either call it hypnosis, brainwashing, induction, and then they're reformed. And then the main character gets this kind of intel legend. and he gets a Medal of Honor, right? So for this supposed skirmish that never happened, it's all fake, and everybody's told it's fake. But he gets this thing. He's lauded. His mother and then his stepfather is a senator, and his mother's trying to angle her husband into the presidency. And I mean, this is a total ruiner of the whole film, but like, so spoiler alerts, I'm going to spoil the whole film. Anyway, they're starting to realize they're having dreams and nightmares about this kind of induction, because during this hypnosis event that happened in Manchuria, 2 people were murdered. One guy pulled it. You just use that figure of speech. One guy in the head and the other. And the real thing is that is actually a question that a lot of researchers have asked in the real world. Can you get somebody to do something that's against your moral code while under hypnosis or post-hypnotic suggestion? That's an open question. There's actually, when you read the literature, you realize that question is addressed.
That's interesting, because it seems like what they've done, or at least through our research, is the trauma causes the individual to disassociate, and it makes space for an additional layer of personality. And you can get into the spiritual implications. Is that a form of possession or something like that? But really, it seems like you can achieve quite a bit through an individual if you can move their personality away from the forefront and almost to the back of the psyche. And this gets into a bunch of strange things, right? Where you have like Stranger Things. That's a funny thing, actually, that I said, unintentional.
It actually ties in, right? She's like
she's 11, by the way. Her name is 11, right. So there's your numerology. And yeah, she's a mind control sort of a victim. Well, really, what she is she's a victim of trauma that causes her to disassociate. She then uses that technique, by the way, disassociation, by way of float tank sensory deprivation, so that she can disassociate from her physical body and now enter sort of a psychic realm, which goes into a lot of other supposed operations that are, ultra adjacent. But this idea of this kind of falls into Project Monarch, doesn't it? Which is almost like a subdivision of Ultra.
I think so. They had Ultra's just like another place you can stamp, like this is where it started. Before that, they had another guy running things. His name was Morse Allen. So in the 50s, and they had different things. They had Artichoke, Bluebird, and some other ones. So before they did the 150 or 149 sub projects, there were other things going on. I think Monarch was one of those. So I think it was pre-research before. Monarch is the butterfly, right?
Right.
Before transformation, like metamorphosis, right? That's the theme. I think it was before Ultra, but I have to check my notes. But it's right around that time for sure. Somebody in the notes mentioned 7 Days of May. I'm glad you did. This is a smart bunch of people.
That's Jin. Shout out to Ginny. She is the gift that keeps on giving. One of our favorite people, but also knows her shit.
We pay her to be here.
That's right, we do.
Well, she's made an interesting comment, because Frankenheimer, after he finished Manchurian Candidate, he made another movie called 7 Days in May. And this is another kind of politically important film, because it involved JFK. It got greenlit for it, and JFK went back to Hyannisport so that Frankenheimer could on the White House. And the theme of the story is a military takeover of the U.S. So this movie, like literally, that's what happened. I mean, you have to see the death of JFK as a coup. And most people say, oh, the CIA did it, but there's tons of military guys around. Lansdale's on site, probably more than likely, who's known as the Ugly American, who's like involved in all kinds of nasty stuff. LeMay, who I mentioned earlier, who was like the hardest hard right winger. Willoughby, another guy who was involved in Japan. Like, these are really tough guys involved in like making decisions where thousands and thousands of people died. So like it's not, then this is kind of like ties into Operation Northwoods, all that other stuff. But 7 Days in May is another example of fiction and fact kind of blending together, which is also something that happens in the Ultra thing, where these fictional realities, these people get morphed into, just kind of like you mentioned about Stranger Things and 11 and all that stuff.
Yes.
They do a lot of numerology play. If you go back and watch the first episode of that show, they do like 77s. They're playing around with that. Right, they're gardening. Hold on just a second.
That's all right. I'll just say for the audience that on Stranger Things, if you're watching Stranger Things, the first, I don't know, it's definitely the first season, once Hopper, who's the kind of the police officer, good guy character who's he's the sheriff of his small town, and he's figuring out there's something nefarious going on. And these kids are going missing. Hopper starts going through archives in the local library, finding out that the military was conducting experiments in the town. And he's like, have you ever heard of Ultra? So they're telling it to you, but it rides this line where it's like, it's revealed through fiction, but then your brain files it away as fiction. I think that's maybe the point of
and that's the sleight of hand. Yeah.
That's the sleight of hand. And I guess they do the whole revelation of the method thing. Some people go, is it to free them of karmic retribution? It could just be as simple as you're going to catch wind of this because, secrets come out. But when you do, it'll resonate with a part of your brain that files things away under fiction.
Mm.
Right. And I think that Condon and these guys are kind of telling, we don't know how much JFK knew about these programs. I'm suspecting that because he was the president, he had access to some stuff. So maybe this was his means of disclosure, of a kind of soft disclosure where let's get this book done so at least we can get these concepts out to the public, because this is all done through classification and secrecy. Like we're just coming to know now because of the internet and really incredible Freedom of Information Act type stuff, that we know more details about what they were up to. And they were up to no good. They were really bad. Like it was really, the MK Ultra program wasn't some kind of like, oh, we're just going to set up a hospital at Colgate. It was like the Manhattan Project. If you ever look at the Manhattan Project where they built the nuclear bomb, it was spread out and compartmentalized all over the country.
Yeah.
So only the people at the top saw the entire project. So one guy would be working on one component in Arizona and another guy would be in Chicago. And that was what it was like for Ultra. They infiltrated, they did very cleverly, like this whole weaponization of pre-existing organizations or entities where they would just build an additional thing at some pre-existing hospital or college, and then just call it like, ABC wing or something. But it was all done through secret funds, secret cutouts from the CIA, and all over the country. Stanford, Georgetown, McGill. These are main universities like Colgate. I think they had a satellite office in Manhattan where they were doing this stuff. I mean, it's really incredible. And then infiltrating also like state hospitals and things like that.
Yep.
Like you hear stories of like some of these guys are exposed to massive doses of things. And like one of them well known as Menlo Park, the Veterans Administration. Also Whitey Bulger, like this guy who went on to like 20 people, was that one of the last people at Alcatraz. He said he got out of his brain on LSD.
Yeah, Z-Man in the chat here says Midnight Climax. So Operation Midnight Climax, where they're taking Johns from the house and they're dosing them with LSD. It's like the sort of the flexibility of human psychology was discovered, and it was discovered in such a way as its applications to like all sorts of things. Not only the programmability to create, whatever you want, a soldier or that creates an opportunity, but also this exploration of psychic phenomenon, and certainly the exploration and application of remote viewing, which was no doubt something that they had an idea about, but then they figured out how to do, and they did it through trauma. They did it through psychedelics. They did it through frequency, binaural beats, hemi-syncing, things like that. They found a plethora of ways to alter the human mind in such a way. And it's like this massive field of study that gets no daylight shown on it whatsoever. In other words, it's an incredibly promising field that reaps all sorts of benefits. And you find out that human beings are actually endlessly fascinating. You know, there's no shortage of stories of the U.S. government using or the FBI using remote viewers to achieve one thing or another, but it never sees the light of day. The exploration of psychic phenomenon within these intelligence agencies and these you know these operations like Ultra and et cetera, hugely promising, or else they wouldn't be dumping all this funding into it, and you wouldn't see the elements of it all throughout, you know, all the strange happenings around the world. It's like they discovered something that changes our fundamental understanding of the human psyche, and they did not introduce that to the public whatsoever, unless you take into consideration the telepathy tapes or something like that.
It's incredible. Like the amount of funds they spent was like 250 million in their like time. Like it's a huge program. And they, I mean, some of the documents that came out, like I'm surprised they filtered out, because I wouldn't have let them, if I was Helms or Dulles, I would never let them see the public. But how cunning and clever they were disguising their things, and how they tried to bring in new doctors and actually kind of create this kind of snowballing effect. Like, we can get more patients and more doctors and do this and attract more people into this field of study. For people who don't know, MK Ultra was a research component, so it's not the operational side. It's just that this is how they were aggregating research in centralizing, like central intelligence, like the name is it. The other people who were down, the kind of foot soldiers or the researchers, didn't have the benefit of all the aggregated information. So they only saw what they were doing at Georgetown or McGill or whatever. But there's not a lot of evidence that it went up and came back down, if that makes sense. But like, yeah, it's just really incredible what was going on at that time. And there's a lot of deaths.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I wanted to say, and finish your thought, please. But I'd like to get into some of these clips, because it's fascinating. You know, on this show, we deal a lot with the idea of, you know, I don't know what better to call it, but it's like the whole revelation of the method thing. And what you're describing, it doesn't even sound like they're the same way Stranger Things. It's a work of fiction, but it's exactly what was going on. To a degree. I mean, I don't know about, you know, the Demigorgon and things like that, but, you know, it sounds like this is not something new. They've been doing this for a long time. When did this film come out again, Manchurian?
It was released in 62, so late 62.
Wow.
And then it was taken off the market after and then 7 Days in May dropped, and Dr. Strangelove both dropped at the beginning of 1964, January 64.
Jeez.
So those are all important, and they're overlapped. All these films overlap, because Strangelove is like the crazy generals, you know, gunning like we can win a nuclear war type stuff. And it's really, I mean, it's actually really present today, because if you hear kind of JFK's famous kind of speech, he's talking about it directly in conflict with the Russians in nuclear war. And here we are, the United States, trying to overthrow the Russian government. Like in this fake war in Ukraine. I call it a pseudo proxy war. It's like, that's what they're propagandizing the public. But without the U.S. behind Europe and anything, none of that stuff would happen. And Trump is just bamboozling the public with his life. I mean, the suckers who believe him for when he's talking. But he's definitely allowing this to continue. So he's a warmonger and a liar.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Sorry to the
No. I mean, yeah, that's. I mean, that's. Seems to be the case. I've got no allegiance to Trump or anybody else.
That's why I think that all this stuff is relevant, like the history and the 7 Days of May and Manchurian Candidate, to all these people that are these strange people that are shooting for whatever reason that they're compelled to. It's about personality change, right? Or a big word is schismogenesis, which is like literally creating a schizo or schizophrenia. Yes. All these guys were studying schizophrenia too. And sometimes what they would do is, I think, like, for example, I think it was, they called Sirhan schizophrenic. And that's a good cover, because he is a test subject. He's like, there's something called the Stanford Suggestibility Scale in hypnosis, and people fall under it. And some people just cannot be hypnotized. Somebody could talk to me and I'd just be like, what the hell are you doing? And then somebody else, based upon certain things. Usually you're younger, like Sirhan's 24, Chapman's 26, Oswald's 24. You're usually younger. There's no father figure. You've either had brain injury or something, or a lot of trauma, like you mentioned, trauma. If you've had a lot of trauma in your life, for some reason, that's like the groundwork for suggestibility.
I think that the Gates program was also a selection process to find that in the general public, in the public school system, to find these kids, because the younger you can get them, then the more fruitful your labor is when you subject them to these different programs.
That's like Stranger Things too, right? Like the selection process that literally happened at the CIA, and a lot of the stuff, Gittinger, who's one of the ultra doctors who strangely ties into JFK and probably worked with Jolly West, the infamous Jolly West. He was big on these kind of personality tests, so a way to ask you questions, and that actually seeped into the public domain and into Scientology. One of the first things you do when you join Scientology is you take a personality test, which I would never do. And I'd be afraid to take it because it's like 200 or 300 questions. Whoa. But then they can parse your brain. Like then they know your weaknesses, right? So they know you're giving them an out, like
well, they also do the auditing process, which is effectively like Catholic confessionals, where you just tell them all the terrible things that you've done.
And then they keep it in a file. That's why nobody leaves. They've got all your worst secret. I mean, Scientology is a whole nother show, but the tie over, what'll scare you is the tie between a lot of this research and Scientology is
it's all the study of the programmability and the suggestibility of individuals. Hypnotism plays a huge role in it. There's this idea that a lot of this stems from research that was being conducted in the Nazi regime, and that there was I think, was it Himmler? No, it wasn't Himmler. Himmler was kind of the occult dude. There was what was the guy that was called the Doctor of Death?
Mengele.
Yeah, that Mengele was looking for several things. There you go.
I just got this book the other day. It's Nazi Germany, the CIA, and the dawn of the psychedelic age, and it talks about all the Russian. Yeah, it's really good. So.
I mean, this is something we talk about often. We just never have any facts to back up our schizophrenic.
We have some facts.
We have the bit. But
I was gonna say the Scientology stuff is kind of fascinating because I was looking back into our episode with Izzy Griffin. We were talking about Sabrina Carpenter, who's a pop star now, but she is in Scientology. She is showing in her music videos these like hints, or not even hints anymore. They're like direct
callbacks.
Direct callbacks to Ultra. She also is possibly the Babylon. I mean, you name it with this lady. She is she fits all categories,
and she's constantly doing like a thing where she's presenting herself as a child, and then she's got all these nods to like Lola or whatever, Lolita. Yeah, she's doing that. Like, there's all of this stuff is embedded in her music and the way that she presents it. It's very strange. It's very strange.
In the book, Condon's book, it's not in the film, but in Condon's book, the mother is having with her dad. So it's a relationship, and it takes place in an attic. And if you go farther down the kind of road of like studying mind control, attics and carousels, for some reason, there's something about the symbology of that's in there. And he knew that. I think Condon even knew that in 1959. So some of this information must have seeped out to him one way or another. He was in Hollywood, and I think of Lady Gaga when you say that. She does a lot of that occult stuff too. Stuff. So maybe this woman you're talking about, Carpenter, is the next iteration of that. But one of the scarier things about Scientology is the hypnosis, which you'll see with Sirhan. He literally would self-hypnotize himself. He was into the occult too. But it gets really dark. But even like the founder, L. Ron Hubbard, knew hypnosis or induction or getting into the deeper realms of the subconscious. He would hypnotize himself to be the most powerful person. So he was actually utilizing a smaller level. Guys, do not mess around with hypnosis, by the way. You can get in real trouble. You can go to jail. You can get busted. This is very dicey stuff. So I mean, it's important to expose this because we're being exposed to kind of low-level hypnosis when we turn on the TV.
Yes.
But
yes.
Yeah, he would hypnotize. He did a subset, Hubbard subset, which is called powerization. So he would powerize himself so that when he was at his higher kind of conscious self, he would think of himself as kind of like this super god. Also, occultist, Satanist, love Crowley, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Rituals, just horrible stuff.
There's two
Psychic
things.
driving. So he did a thing. Hubbard did a thing called soul cracking. Look up soul cracking. It's in my book, Children of the Beast. It'll blow your mind. Like, what the hell?
Soul cracking. That's something that we have to.
We should have. I honestly kind of want to do a little bit of a deep dive on Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard since that Sam Tripoli episode.
Oh, shout out to Jeremy Ryan Slade, whom I love and I enjoy very much. But yeah, it does seem like you got some blind spots when you're in a thing and you're close to it. And
is he
maybe
in
we bring him on for
Scientology?
that one. He is. He's a Scientologist. Great guy. He just he's doing a thing. I don't know if he knows. I don't think he knows. Sam Tripoli brought up a lot of the concepts to him, and it seemed like it was news to him. So could well be something that he's just never looked into. But these two most recent attacks, and you can even go 3, but let's stick with the 2. The which I know we're gonna have to get off of YouTube, and let me just make the playing field, and then we'll kick the pores out. And then this black guy on a train that's a Ukrainian woman. These are the 2 most fresh instances, and they are riddled with strange happenings. I want to talk about those, and I want to tell you what I find strange about them. But before we do, patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad. That's where this episode is going to live. Even if you watch this when it is released on YouTube, it's going to be highly censored, obviously, given the content. You're going to want to check it out at Patreon or wait for it to drop on RSS or Rumble. Otherwise, later, guys. So let's start with the one guy because it's really brief. The stabber on the, as you say, saying stabber sounds silly, but the stabber on the train. An article came out. I haven't had a chance to look at it, but allegedly some of the elements within the article are things like him claiming something was controlling him. He wasn't in control of his actions. He wasn't in control of even when he slept and woke. And even as far as saying when he ate, I don't know. I think Top's looking for it. He might be able to find it, but which admittedly is a really beneficial this kind of scapegoat to fall back on if you just a woman in the neck on the train. But I recognize as well that Slasher's a good one. Thank you, Jeep. So here we go. This is from Deanne. Court documents say he told responding officers he believes someone gave him a man-made material. That's a fascinating way of describing it. That controlled when he ate, walked, and talked. If you scroll down, this is a My Fox 8. We have the article up there. Maybe we'll share that later on. And then if you look at, which I think is always a good idea, look at what agenda this serves. And I would say that we are being primed for a.
I love when you say this.
We are being primed.
I think you're correct because they have been digging up. I mean, it's not like the people who are upset about this, and whether they're upset because they actually are upset or if they're.
And it is upsetting.
It is upsetting when you see this, but it also happened 2 weeks ago. And
now we're just getting wind of it.
Yeah, like they show it to us as if it's breaking news the day before moon. But there's a lot of like weird stuff around that. But
then what happens? Elon Musk all of a sudden is now tweeting about statistics.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are fans of the show, have been following our, digging through this, it feels like Elon has had his fingers on the cultural scales for some time. And he used you, TopLobsta, to notice the Jews. And there's very much to notice there. And there's much to notice about statistics. But this is what I feel is a controlled release of this information that has been suppressed. And the speech surrounding it has been suppressed for a long time. And now we've created a pressure cooker effect. And I know the audience is terribly exhausted of hearing that terminology come out of my mouth. But It's true. A pressure cooker effect was created with all these racial topics and all these cultural topics that you couldn't talk about. And now Elon has come along and he's cracked the release valve, and it's a bit of a show. It's exploding. So that's one thing. The other thing is comes along and is drawing themselves as a demon and is having this weird dialogue with themselves on video where it sounds like a back and forth between multiple personalities. Which I think really works to the disassociation aspect, because a lot of these shooters, as I know in your slides, William, you're preparing to show us, will have a totally different visage. They've dyed their hair a wonky color. It really helps to disassociate and allow that other personality to take over. Some people believe it's demonic possession. I kind of put myself in that school of thought. If the person that you look at in the mirror doesn't resemble you, and what does a better job at that than so there's so much here that lends itself to that. And then, of course, the agenda that serves is this big contention. We're tired of the left. We're tired of the LGBTQ. Let's get some big, heavy weights in there to tip the scales in that direction. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that it's happened. I think that it's also after this, the Biden administration too. So I think that these things are happening in the environment of Trump. But I think that they've been priming for a long time. I think that there's also, you get such a different view of reality depending upon where you drink from your media well, So like if you're on X or Twitter or some of the podcasts, you're getting a different view than you're on mainstream media or newspapers or legacy stuff. So I think that that's a big tell, is like, even though like now it's like anti-people from India too is huge. Like, whoa, H-1B visas and truck drivers are dangerous. But the reality is that it's true. They are dangerous. They don't speak English behind like a 12-ton truck. Like, that's crazy. So whoever allowed that was corrupt.
Well,
and there's a lot of
what I think it is, William. Isn't it not like it is true, and it's also a fantastic point to subvert and steer the culture, right? So it's like the best thing that you can steer the culture with is true things, but you just say we can't talk about them at first, because if we could have talked about them long ago, they would have never gotten to this point.
You make them happen artificially as well, and then you go, oh, whoa, crazy, huh?
So yeah, I think that there's always people priming the culture, whatever way it is, whatever way whoever's in power. I guess I think that's inevitable. So I think that those really are things that are happening. But I do think like the H-1B thing is just a complete fraud, and people are getting kickbacks and grifts and grafts and these jobs. Somebody works $100,000 job, they give money back to somebody else who gave them the job. So that's how it works, So then they're angling people out. Like my daughter's generation, they can't find jobs. They really can't find an actual corporate job. Like a normal person would go work for, an accounting firm or something. You just can't get them if you're white. So I think their frustration is way worse than anything I experienced, because they're being angled out by fraud and graft and all kinds of corruption. It's kind of
obvious fraud and obvious grift. And Elon Musk again has his fingers in this. I don't know if you guys remember the crash out of Christmas last year.
That's right.
Because he's a big H-1B guy, because I guess that's who he's hiring. And at the time, people were kind of like, hey, this looks like bullshit, dude. And he's like, oh, you're just lazy bums. Right. And he freaked out on him. And it's like, is this to like stir the pot a little bit more?
And then the Tesla truck, the Cybertruck blew up in front of Trump Towers, and you had this. Right. It was this, very strange
psyop season.
And then you have the whole whitey thing, which is real, but it's like it's an orchestrated thing, right? You have you leverage a public into voting for a porous southern border. You manipulate them emotionally so that you can pass legislation to allow that sort of thing to happen. And now, in conjunction with this, the natural migration of people that's been taking place for the last like 20 years, you go to a place like, I was just in New Jersey over the weekend, in New York, and it is all Black and people. all black and Indian people. Even, and I'm not saying like I'm spending time in the ghetto, and I'm spending time in areas that have money. You know, they're normal middle class suburban areas, still all people. So there is this like massive in these high population centers, a push out of white people. I barely saw any. So there's a replacement thing. There's
It's
all
happening.
of this.
There's no question. I was at Costco in Marina Del Rey in LA, and there's no white people and just hordes of like, where are you coming from? How are you working? What's going on? What happened? It's happened to me in one generation.
Yeah,
and they didn't speak English, and the culture and the dynamics are totally different. They're just different people, I think. So I think that it's really not racism. The culture is going to be really crazy. You're going to see a lot more like accidents, trash, mentality is different. A lot of people scams. I mean, the culture is completely different. That's what you should really be worried about. It's not even the race. It's like, what culture are you bringing in? Like,
well, that's true. Don't you think it's true, William, that if there was a group that sought to subvert and overthrow America, have some radical regime change, any number of things, that would be much easier to accomplish if there was no cultural cohesion among the civilians?
Oh, 100%. The other thing is that a lot of these third world people, a lot of them who've come into power or whatever, they're looting the country blind. Like here in California, there's hundreds of billions of dollars missing, and the place looks like a third world. So where's that money? Why isn't anybody prosecuting somebody? And where'd the money go? Like I don't even know where the rule of law is anymore. Like they're obviously stealing money. There was a huge rail project that goes through the center of California that has like one bridge in Manteca, and $85 billion is missing. This is a simple fraud. This isn't like an 8-year-old could figure out. Well, I had piggy bank. I had 25 quarters there, and now I have one quarter. Where's the other 24 quarters? Like, this isn't complex. So you have to wonder what the heck's going on. And this is they just found out in Michigan there was a $5 billion fraud through 4,000 fake jobs that didn't even exist. Like, imagine if those were real jobs and actually somebody was doing something for the people. Like, you cannot hate the current government of America enough. You cannot hate it enough. It's either there's no middle ground. You either hate it with the fury of a dwarf star, or you're stupid. Like, you're not paying attention. Like, what are you doing? Because these people are. Oh yeah.
I'm
the
sorry.
Other thing is they're going to sell people out. The people from India are going to give other Indians jobs and grift off of that, and then it's basically like a doubling process, right? Like,
and when you start having all these remote jobs, it becomes much easier to hide jobs too. You know what I mean? You have a bunch of fake jobs because everybody's working remotely.
Yeah. So good luck, everybody. It's going to be a rough road from here on out.
Yeah. Well,
start a podcast.
It's a lucrative business.
You got to do something else, because you can't find a regular job in corporate America. And a lot of those are just mommy daycare. Like, they don't even do anything at these corporate jobs. Like, that's what Elon found out at Twitter. Like 80% of his people were just grifting off the company, not doing squat. Like, they would actually record videos of them not doing anything. Like, okay, I'm taking a break for coffee, and then I'm going upstairs, and then I'm going to work out, and then I go to bed, and then I get some beer, and like, whoa. So
that's how it goes. It's, you said it's not like it's hard to see, but the problem is all of the little machinations that are involved in this, I guess, this destruction of America. It's spread all across every possible industry, like everything that you could think of. It's huge.
Well, I think the problem that we're running into here is that it's not hard. It's quite obvious. The people who don't see it don't want to see it. But with events like this that we're talking about, it's like, look at it. And people are now forced to, like, oh my God, this girl got full force in the neck on the train.
So they released more video of it. And it's so bizarre, man. Like, I'm just gonna say what I see. So the guy, looks like he hits her in the neck, and she reels back and looks at him, and she like grabs her kind of chest a little bit. I don't really see Maybe there's some in the video. I don't know. It doesn't look to me like she's been. I'm not saying that she wasn't, but she is very upset. She looks sad and scared. And the guy just walks away. And everybody on the train, who, by the way, everybody is black. She's the only white person. Nobody helps her whatsoever. Some of them get up and leave. And the video is about 12 seconds long. So it's like they keep giving us a little chunk at a time. And each time they give us a new chunk, the story gets worse. And all it does is fuel the thing even more, which, you know, as I already said, has a ton of validity, because when Elon Musk says, look at the crime statistics, he is citing, you know, real crime statistics. But it's like, I don't know, man. Like, show us the full video before and after, because with each moment that they give us, it just becomes more confusing, and it really lends itself to much more of this thing. But I think that's where all of this is going. I think we are in a controlled pendulum swing, and where this pendulum was going to naturally swing back to more conservative Republican ideologies, cultural ideologies that are more conservative. It is now, it's got a SpaceX rocket strapped to the pendulum, and it's getting in the other direction now, and it's going to swing back so hard that you know, we likely are going to get some sort of okay, there, I said it.
You're just going to get more and more people like Nick Fuentes. That's why he's taking off, because people are noticing something's wrong. The civilization's gone down. There's no question. Like, I grew up in San Francisco, and it turned into like a fourth world under, you know, in one generation. It's a beautiful city. It has so much natural beauty, and it's wealthy. And the mismanagement and corruption just destroyed it. It's kind of coming back. It was really weird. I was up there last week, and I was driving around. I could find a parking spot anywhere. So no tourists are going there. It used to be a tourist town. Like, people would actually fly there from like Europe or somewhere and hang out, or China. And there's no tourists anymore, or just one or two here and there, because the reputation has preceded itself. But it was really, it's almost surreal as somebody who, like, you would drive around for 30 minutes looking for a parking spot.
Yeah.
Actually took a parking spot farther away from where I was going, because I thought, oh, well, we just have to take this. And then I walked to where I was going and saw like 10 more parking spots. I was like, this is surreal. Like, they've ruined these cities. And maybe it'll hollow out. That'll be the good thing. But people have to get back to, like, what civilization do you want? What culture do you want? Because this civilization's the theft civilization, and graft and greed, and people just robbing the people who are putting money in for their children. That's their, like, legacy and heritage, and giving it away to somebody who's stealing everything. Like, that should be the most infuriating. And a lot of these boomers, they don't even care. Boomers are like the worst.
They're good. We're in Florida. We're surrounded by them. They're just living in paradise while the world burns.
They don't even understand anything that's wrong with their kids. That's how easy they had it. Free loans, no 30-year mortgage, good paying jobs. The money was real. No grifts and grafts out of the government. Like, you could keep more of your taxes. So, I mean, be afraid. You should be afraid, because these people are freaking thieves, man. The Biden administration, they stole hundreds of billions of dollars, if not trillions, and offshored it. So it didn't even come back into the American government. Like, it's just incredible that Trump let it get away. And these losers like Bondi, the whole administration, just a bunch of freaking warmongering losers. They could have arrested like 50,000, 100,000 people. They had, if they were smart. They're not smart. They should have hired like 50,000 lawyers to bust these people for all the theft and put them in jail forever. They're just tolerant of evil. You can't hate the government enough. The current government's trash. The system that we have is trash.
Well, it turns out evil, especially lately, has been super profitable.
Sure,
I know you bought.
It creates more evil, so everybody has to be more evil. That's the whole thing.
There you go.
To adapt to
which one do you want to jump to, William? Do you want to go to the clips, or would you rather go to the slides?
I think we can go through the clips. I think the clips are good because, or the film, because we can kind of stop and start.
Sorry, let's pause that.
Do you have the audio? Can you hear the audio? Because I can't.
Yeah, we can hear the audio. So this is the Manchurian. This is the film that came out in the 60s. And this is the one where really, it does a great job of just kind of highlighting the things that we're being subjected to right now. Oh, 2 more weeks for the Epstein files. Thank you, Atma. Atma's bringing us updates. Everybody just stay calm. Patriots are in control.
Yeah, really, MAGA. Q.
All right,
Q's
let's
wait for the
let's
next Q drop, guys.
That's
it's
it.
not
Yeah.
it's not a psyop.
Nope,
Just
not
wait
at
for
all.
that real Q drops. It's probably run partially by Bannon, who's on, like, according to Elon Musk, is on the Epstein list. Like, one of the things that give away the Epstein list is that Elon Musk has named like 3 people who are on there: Trump, Bannon, and the guy from LinkedIn. It's the guy who started Salesforce. I forgot his name, but he's the CEO. But like, they've never sued Elon.
No.
So like, the fact that they're not suing is very telling. Anyway, this movie's so important. It has all the
Korea was
Illuminati
over.
numbers.
Captain, I'll make
This
you
is
the-
like this is the standard kind of like schizo wall of the time, right? So like today, you'll see the people who are like trying to make connections with, you know, pins and string. But this is it. So he's reading all these books. So this is them behind enemy lines. This is Dr. Yen Lo, and he's kind of like this avatar of all the studies they've done about mind control. He starts listing off all these studies and things like that. And this is a direct quote today. This is him. This is going to be the kind of like assassin patsy figure that they're setting up with a fake legend. Like, they're sheep. That's very important. They go right into it. The whole thing about hypnotization. Can you make somebody do something, whether they're consciously aware or it's against their moral nature? He literally said it's an old wives' tale. Oh, sorry. Let's go back here. Not real papers, but these papers of like the whole investigation into hypnotism is real. That's really real. And the main guy who's friends with Sinatra, who was a consultant on this film, his name is Dr. William Joseph Bryan Jr. Have you ever heard of his name?
No.
Okay, that's we'll get there. It gets important.
In the 60s, and certainly still today, these concepts would go over the head of the average person. So it's like the entertainment value is almost low. I mean, I guess in the production and the sequences and everything and the way it's like it's very well done. But without the context of years and years of,
well, it's being presented as entertainment, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, like we were talking about before, it's a double entendre of the people absorbing this as like, oh yes, this is the base level of this new type of story, when in reality it's like,
it is reality.
we're just reading you the white paper.
Right. Condon has distilled the information at the time and put it into this, which made it into the film. It's really crazy. Like, he knew a lot of stuff. He knew the like occult aspect. So the implication of all this numerology is that this is kind of like a new form of magic, right? This whole thing of mind control and stuff, or hypnotism, which has really been around. If you know the word mesmerized is from a guy in the 19th century. His name was Mesmer, who did this stuff. It was studied all through the 19th century. They knew that it was around. It just wasn't like something happened after World War II where these guys, they corporatized everything and turned it into like this technical, scientific, academic work, which was really different.
I think it had a lot to do with Operation Paperclip and bringing these scientists over, and some of them that work directly with this sort of programmability of individuals, and then you watch it bleed out immediately into entertainment, which becomes a wing, probably birthed from the same scientists of the propaganda machine, the same propaganda machine that seeks to, I guess, sort of filter you. Because if you just follow it and see what it looks like scaled up, it looks like what we're subjected to today, which is what we were talking about, William, before the show started, of free range filter victims. It's like, this is clearly a viable way to cause whatever it is, disassociation, split personality, schizophrenia, you name it. Can we do this at scale? And we certainly have. So I think, and according to what we've looked into, it comes out of World War II, specifically Operation Paperclip, and that's when the party really begins.
It goes back. Like these guys were doing crazy tests in the 30s, and you in these new documents, this new ultra, it's called Janny. What's the name of it? It's the title for people can check it out. It's Tanny J. Tanny versus Royal Victoria Hospital, McGill University, and the Attorney General of Canada and the AG Bondi of the U.S. So they put a lot of people in there. But in these documents, Ewan Cameron was doing mad scientist stuff in the 30s.
Yeah.
And the other person you need to look up, who for some strange reason Dave McGowan keyed into in his book Program to, but a very important figure in all this is a guy by the name of Esther Brooks. And he was doing stuff like this in the 30s. So it's pre-World War II. But they were all interested. And actually, well, it's a whole nother topic, but it goes back into other civilizations and other people. They induce hypnosis. They didn't have the terminology we have today. But if you look at the Hashashin, the original assassins, they would take them and put them into kind of a paradise, this kind of square enclosure, and give them some kind of sensory overload and involve women and hash, right? That's how it got its name, Hashashin. And then he kind of like trained them, and it's kind of like an ancient view of mind control. And then he would send the assassins out and kill people. That took place in Persia. And some of these other.
If you look at the Vikings, they had berserker rituals where they were doing mushrooms. So you have your psychedelic, and they were summoning into their warriors berserker spirits, and it would make them like pretty much undefeatable in physical combat. And these warriors were rumored to sustain like mortal wounds and just keep going and have the strength of several men. And there was even that really weird situation that happened in California. I think it was in the 80s or 90s, where they had bank robbers. And when the police apprehended the bank robbers in a parking deck, they got into a shootout with them. And these guys were just eating and still coming forward. Eventually, they did die, but it gave rise to this idea that they were on angel dust, PCP. But police officers who were investigating the entire thing said that the toxicology reports came back negative, and that the only strange thing they found was in the apartments of the bank robbers, the shooters, was a altar to basically like Odin, and this whole thing for ritual, berserker. I forget exactly how he worded it, but he was like, yeah, they were like doing old Norse berserker rituals. And so, but that wasn't what the public got. The public got like, likely it was PCP or angel dust. So yeah, there's always been this. It's incredibly old. This idea,
these techniques and stuff. There were things like that in ancient Greece. There are the rites of Eleusis. There are like these women who would get drugged out and go around. There's all kinds of like strange things they were doing. Even kind of going into a temple or a church is a means of like sensory deprivation, right? Because if you go into a church, it's quiet, right? So then when you pray or you're thinking, there's no distractions, right? So it's like you're doing it voluntarily, though. And that's how you reach the deeper elements of your own personality and conscious, by willingly go into a church and doing it. The scariest part is these guys are taking over your own will, right? That's the whole thing. About.
I think that the Nazis were likely at the cutting edge of it, and they were the most modern version before, we started doing this here in the United States. But Hitler and Himmler, they all had this like obsession with the old Germanic gods and sort of that idea of, whatever the early Germanic peoples were into, and, runes, and, this sort of Norse mythology thing was something that they were also looking for relics. And so I think that they ended up kind of, combining technology and science with those old occult practices. And it's like Sam Tripoli always says, hardwired mysticism. I think that was the big difference, was the technology aspect of it. It was like where previously it was happening under the influence of drugs with like chants and mantras and meditation. Now you could induce this with frequency technology, You can study these individuals in a laboratory setting when you give them a highly refined, potent version of a psychedelic in LSD. So once you got the lab involved with the mysticism, that's where really, really went crazy.
You're right. Hitler was a hypnotist at a seance. He knew hypnotism. It's not even arguable. It's not arguable. If you hear some of his speeches too, he was kind of an induction process. You can hear some of his speeches where like he will walk into the room, it's totally silent, and he'll sit there and wait. He plays with his pen. He coughs a little bit. He's getting everybody into that suggestible state. He's doing it intentionally. Ladies and gentlemen, today I've come to talk with you. We're really here now. And then he starts screaming like that. And it's like, you know what he's doing. If you know hypnotism, you know what he's doing. He's definitely,
and there's different versions of that, right?
Probably,
Obama.
The over and over again. He does it, but other speech people do as well. So
yeah,
like,
Obama
at the
had
end
that
of his
cadence,
speeches,
it was very hypnotic.
He's like screaming and sweating, and he's trying to drive his ideas into all of his listeners as best as he can. So it's a technique. So yeah, you're right. But there's another show. I mean, there's another show in this. There's a guy named Hannison from the 30s who Hitler was associated, who mysteriously died. And you wouldn't believe this stuff. Like Crowley knew it too. Crowley knew this kind of like induction techniques. Yeah. And Hitler knew one of his friends. It's just like Hitler's an occultist. He knew, he was exposed to all that ancient German stuff you talk about through the Thule Society and all that things, but also he knew the kind of secret techniques. And I think he had the will to use it. And there's even arguments that when he was in the insane asylum after World War I, where he came out with like this mission to save Germany, that he was exposed to hypnotism.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It's another show.
I've heard, I don't know how true it is, but within the Gates program, they were looking for heterochromia, and the Mengele was also fascinated with heterochromia and twins and this like psychic connection, and there's an idea that people with heterochromia, like those two different color eyes, can't be hypnotized for whatever reason, and so the Gates program was fascinated by what mechanism, but it's like it's also obfuscated. It's just kind of rumor driven. I mean, you have documents that come out to the Freedom of Information Act, but I've never seen anything hard on heterochromia. But it is an element that continually pops up. What we were listening to recently, where the guy, his brother was demonically possessed. That's right. And this individual whose brother became possessed after a psychedelic influenced ritual. And then and he kind of briefly mentions, he's like, my brother had two different color eyes, and it went over the head of the interviewer, but our ears perked up like, oh, there it is again. It shows itself pretty consistent. It's just one of those patterns that emerges, and it's hard to place it.
It's interesting.
All right, let's get back to
the transformation is very important. Yeah. So if you look at this, kind of take a step back, he's literally at the top of a triangle with the world behind him, right? So it's like,
that's interesting. They were nailing the symbolism back in the day, huh?
Yeah, they were really. See, it's interesting. They have these psychiatrists. This is the people who are driving ultras. All these doctors, they're all over the place. There's just so many, and so this film reflects that, this kind of higher level academic thinking. This is an example of post hypnotic suggestion right here, and they don't overtly tell you in the film or the book. But all of these guys have learned the same phrase about Shah, which is complete nonsense. So this guy, he sees this. Oh. He's right. Where is he? There he is at the far end right there.
Oh,
so you're seeing it. You're seeing this part of the dream is him.
So but so this is multiple people having the same.
That's why that's why there's black women there. So it's his version of this same event.
I understand. Damn, that's an excellent plot device.
It's very clever, dude. You gotta watch. I've watched this like 20 times. It's just mind-blowingly good. He's been exposed to the same post-hypnotic suggestion. This queen is right. So the Queen of Diamonds. And the reason they've set up the Queen of Diamonds as the for Raymond Shaw is because he really loathes his mother. So this is what these hypnotists made as the sign, because it's related in his brain to something he doesn't like already.
By the way, though, this is something that I feel like sort of the Mockingbird media will use, where you have a tagline that's associated with a tragedy, and they'll repeat it over and over and over again. Like I know with Trayvon Martin, there was like a particular, line that they kept saying. I forgot what it was. It might have been like him being a scholar or something like that. But it's always speaking to the character of the victim. And it is one that everybody becomes pretty comfortable with because it's been repeated so much throughout every piece of media that goes along with the event. I don't know. It just feels
Safe
like
right.
safe and ooh, that's a great one. There you go. Is a great one.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm talking about. When what elements are there to create this disassociative candidate? Well, there's the psychedelics, and we all have that constantly because marijuana has been legalized and they've made it THC heavy, which is the psychedelic component of marijuana. The trauma, which happens willingly through the Mockingbird media to us constantly on our phones that we keep on us at all times. So we're always jamming this trauma-based mind control in our own faces. I think it's really it really has scaled up, and it is to the point where it's happening on to the masses regularly, and that we're doing it to ourselves. And then they give us our taglines, hands up, don't. There we go, J.K. Ramey, right? And it's a Black Lives Matter does the same thing. Yep, it's an emotionally charged thing. Like hands up, don't is fear based, because you imagine what that is. That moment there, you've got your hands up and you're saying don't, like you're scared for your life. Yeah, they do it to us at scale now.
I just reposted Aldous Huxley's famous speech called The Ultimate Revolution, which is through psychotropic drugs and mind control, you don't have to control people. You don't have to use force. And we're there. The ultimate revolution's already passed. And some of the stuff is in this film. But yeah, they're definitely, I mean, yeah.
Oh,
I don't know why anybody watches TV.
No, but Z-Man said, trust the plan. Think about that. QAnon inundates you with the most horrifying, reality, or to whatever is a reality of what's happening to these children, that the elites are this cabal of child, flesh eaters, all just the worst things you could possibly. And then it's trust the plan. Patriots are in control. Trust the plan. Patriots are. It's the same thing, man. It's I guess that's just how simple it is to get us, huh? Just like show us some trauma and then engineer us with an idea.
Right. They found out that the trauma is a predicate to suggestion. That's the whole basis of traumatic mind control, trauma-based mind control. It's that you put you in a state of like debility, dread, and suggestibility. So that's why they traumatize you first. 9/11 is a huge event. It ties into this stuff. So
and then it goes, never forget.
Yeah, never forget. Got to go over there. We're going to get them over there, right? Like repetitive. These guys all know this stuff. You have to see the Bush family as heirs to the research that was done under Dulles and Helms. Like who shows up mysteriously as the head of the CIA in 77? George Bush Sr., right? Supposedly not a CIA agent. And I mean, he's right there at the Kennedy. He's literally like I think he's in Whitney, Texas, like 10 miles away. Like I wasn't in Dallas. Well, of course you weren't. Yeah. You were 10 miles away. Like right. It's such a joke. They were all there. It was like a day of the jackals, but it ties in. You're watching this stuff. This is interesting because one of the things that ties into the Kennedy is that Raymond Shaw is behind kind of the Cold War line, so to speak. And where is Oswald? He's literally in Russia for like 18 months. He's literally in Russia till 1962. And all of a sudden he comes back. He's like, he left. He's dead by 24, but like his life is amazing. How did he come back and not be thrown in jail? And then he starts going through all this communist stuff. Like, why would you let a guy go to Russia, then come back and be involved in Fair Play for Cuba and all this so-called Castro sympathy stuff? Like, it's just like they're washing Raymond Shaw in the film. That's why it got so. That's why they had to take this away from the public.
Yeah, too many people would have noticed.
They would have noticed that Oswald's a patsy. He said he was a patsy himself, right? And so, like, this is like this overlap. The other thing is like Oswald's at Sugi, which is a known ultra hub. They actually, I don't know if you know the death of Frank Olson. Do you know that story?
No.
He was a guy. He was kind of like a whistleblower at the early ultra, and he was going crazy, like just like they said here. I'm not going crazy, says the black guy. He was going crazy. He was found. He got chucked out of, in my opinion, he got chucked out of a window at like 10 stories and died. And they were using LSD. This is one of their early LSD experiments. But they have a cable from Dulles to Atsugi to say, halt LSD experimentation at Atsugi. So they, like, little pieces of these things come out that probably somebody should have burned in a incinerator, but like so you can see that Dulles is hands-on at Atsugi, where Oswald is at Atsugi in 57 or 58. And it's incredible. He gets demoted and sent back to the U.S. He's at the Air Force Base here, and then he decides to mysteriously go to the Soviet Union with no money. And you'll see that with all these other trained, these kind of weird shooters, is like their ability to move around, like Chapman and Ruth and stuff. Like, they're supposedly in debt, but all of a sudden they can fly to Ukraine. Like, it's just incredible. Or fly across country. Or Mangione can go from Oahu to New York City. Like, these are incredible stuff.
That's like this in Manhattan on the 33rd building of the Blackstone, whatever. I was telling you earlier, there was a tweet that came from 2017 where it seemed to be a classmate of his, a personal friend of his, was tweeting about how he was missing. This was back in 2017. And the guy basically said, I'm not going to stop tweeting about it until they bring him home. And so this guy clearly had gone missing for a swath of time, comes back. Now he's a 33rd floor of the Blackstone building, you know, and that one was weird because it seems so obvious, you know, that you wouldn't have like scrubbed those tweets from the internet beforehand or anything like that. But they came up, and, you know, that's what makes me have to give some consideration to this slasher, whatever, on the subway system, who says that he wasn't in control of his actions, that a man-made substance was put into him that controlled all these different aspects of his life. It's like, yeah, wouldn't be surprised, actually, if that was the case.
Right. Timothy McVeigh said he had an implant. All these guys, strange things happen. The real backstory of Oswald is much stranger than you think. He had handlers, much like Raymond Shaw in this film. He's being handled. You go watch this whole film, because Yen Lo is behind enemy lines. All of a sudden, he shows up in New York City as a part of the Pavlov Institute, and he's treating Raymond Shaw's character. He's treating Raymond Shaw, or Lawrence's character, or whatever his name, Lawrence Harvey's character. And you'll see that these guys, a lot of these people involved in assassinations who have been blamed for them, have been in and out of the hospital a lot. Lee Harvey Oswald was at Atsugi, and he was treated for days in a hospital for venereal disease. Who gets treated at the hospital for venereal disease? They just give you penicillin and kick you out. He also had a lot of money. He was like living a higher lifestyle in Atsugi. Like, Atsugi is basically downtown Tokyo. It's on a suburb of Tokyo, and he was at some like bars, like wining and dining women. I mean, he's very strange. There's a guy who knew him. His name is Kerry Thornley. He wrote a book about Oswald. It's called The Idle Warriors or whatever. On November 22nd, 1963. Thornley goes on to like be part of the Discordians. Like, he's a really strange character. He's friends with Robert Anton Wilson. And then he says that he also has been experimented on and has an implant. Like, that's what these guys are saying. Like, you cannot write this stuff. But the interesting thing about Oswald, too, I mean, I know we're nearing the end, like a 2-hour mark. Oswald goes into this is like the overlap of this film to the real world events. Oswald goes into Russia, comes back, and he's basically overseen for the rest of his life until he's dead. And actually, his file, we know that James Jesus Angleton had Oswald's 201 file per Jefferson Morley, who wrote a book called The Ghost about Angleton. And he specifically was keeping character and keeping tabs on Oswald. So he knew what was going on. Why did he do that? When he gets back into the U.S., he meets up with a guy who's like friends with all these elites. His name is George Mohrenschildt, who's a very sophisticated white Russian who's kicked out of Russia after the revolution there. And he becomes his friend of George de Mohrenschildt. Then he's friends with David Ferry, who's a hypnotist. He knows how to do post-hypnotic suggestion. David Ferry, Jim Garrison, who criminally prosecuted Clay Shaw, right? Do you remember the whole JFK movie and stuff like that? You guys have seen that? So Clay Shaw's played by Bobby Lee Jones or whatever his name is. Tommy Lee Jones. Prosecuted Clay Shaw. Clay Shaw's friends with Ferry. One of the key elements of the case that Garrison tried to prove, and I think he proved it, he didn't win the case, but that there was a nexus between Bannister, Ferry, and Shaw. And I think it was proven, and there was people who saw Shaw and Ferry trying to get Oswald a job at a hospital in Clinton, Louisiana. So Oswald comes all the way back from Russia. He's being monitored by a high-level CIA agent, Angleton, who's like right under the head of the CIA. He's being mentored by I don't know if you call him. Ferry liked teenage boys. That was his kind of thing. That's why he got kicked out of the priesthood. So the Catholic pedo it's David Ferry, Ferrie, and he's there. And then for some strange reason, this woman, Ruth Payne, there's a really good movie called The Mrs. Payne by Max Good. You got to read it. It's a very important film. And it's also very timely because Ruth Payne died in the last week. She literally died at 92. Yes. And Ruth Payne drives all the way up to Eastern, New England. She's part of this old family, like an old rich WASP Eastern elite family. She drives back down. She comes to New Orleans. She picks up Oswald and drives him to Dallas, and then gets him a job at the Texas School Book Depository.
Whoa.
And you can't, wild. And then Marina's staying at her house in Irving, Texas. And the house in Irving, Texas is still kept as a kind of piece of history. It's not rented out. It's a museum, basically. And the reason why it's there is because at that house, suddenly, like a rifle magically appeared with a receipt. And that ties Oswald to the shooting of JFK.
Very convenient.
Yeah. And so Oswald is really an interesting guy. There are elements of Oswald's life that are very strange. They would sit him in front of like a computer, like a TV, and he would just sit there and watch the TV without moving. And he was, he's very well connected. Like, that's what's really weird about him. And I have video of him saying, "I'm a patsy." Like, he realized it. But he was in the orbit, like much like Raymond Shaw in the film, who has handlers. He has hypnotic handlers. He's much like that. Oswald is the real history of Oswald, not this one where he's supposedly communist. He had he was either recruited. Oh, by the way, Ferry's a known CIA asset. He's an agent. He's not like a contractor. He is running guns he hates Castro. He's an anti-communist. He's running guns for like mafia people. He's in court actually with Marcello, who RFK is prosecuting the day of the. which is, incredible. It's incredible stuff. The real story, but what Oswald is probably like a Raymond Shaw. Like, they've exposed him to a lot of different stuff, and they put him into place, and he was meant to die on that day. So JFK died on that day. Then he was Oswald was shot supposedly by Ruby, and then J.D. Tippett was probably somebody in the corrupt Dallas police were probably supposed to get Oswald leaving the school book depository because he was seen there, and grease him. They were probably supposed to. And that's probably why Tippett got this, because he didn't fulfill his. He was actually supposed to die at the Texas. I don't know how much of the details of like the JFK, but Oswald was seen at the school book depository where Ruth Payne got him his job, who just died. He left. He's seen getting into like cars and stuff. Like, she owned like a blue station wagon, and maybe people have seen that station wagon. She's a very mysterious character. One of the kickers about her is one of her closest friends is this woman named Bancroft, who is literally formerly and a lover of and worked for, guess who? Alan Dulles. So
What?
this one,
it's just so weird how these people, it's like a big circle.
This is a true story. They never bring it up in JFK research. The fact that Ruth Payne traveled around and was in kind of like weird free love environment with this Bancroft woman who literally wrote an autobiography. Do you know what the title of her autobiography was?
No.
The Autobiography of a Spy. Like, she's telling you, yeah. So Bancroft and Payne are like peas in a pod. They're traveling around Europe together before World War II. Then Bancroft works for Dulles and is having sex with him. And then all of a sudden Payne shows up as the central character in the JFK. You can go up online, go look up the Ruth Payne house right now. Look it up on the internet. You could probably bring it up. That's where Marina was and Oswald was. Like, she's a total handler, man. And the whole story of Oswald's fake.
It's kind of wild that
this is literally within 1 year of the release of this film.
It's wild that Oswald, given how young he was and how much he was probably subjected to, ever came to realize that he was a patsy.
It's a museum now.
Yeah, that's it. Imagine if you know the inside story of the JFK there, you have to just laugh because it's completely fake. Like, this is like, oh, she's like a hero who discovered all the stuff. No, she put Oswald into place. She put him into place at the Texas School Book Depository. She died with a lot of secrets, man. And the connection to Dulles is really the giveaway. So if you remember, who's the kind of central figure of the Warren Commission? Who's sitting on the Warren Commission?
Oh, is this
Alan Dulles? Yes. Alan Dulles is on the Warren Commission. Who did JFK let go because of the Bay of Pigs in 1961? Alan Dulles.
Made a lot of enemies.
He did. No, he had no friends. He had no powerful people in high places. So he had enemies in the military and the intelligence, and that was sealed his fate. And there's something about him that rubbed everybody the wrong way. Well, Alan Dulles, Knights of Malta, that's interesting to bring that up because guess who else is in Knights of Malta? They never bring it up in the JFK. Shaw. Shaw is a Knight of Malta. He's a war hero. He worked under this guy, this general called Thrasher. They never bring this up. That's kind of the shortcut. I'm not saying JFK is a bad film because the whole point of Oliver Stone is to contradict this narrative, the fake narrative of the JFK. It's still relevant because they're not giving away all the documents. But Shaw's a Knight of Malta. Dulles is a Knight of Malta. His brother's a Knight of Malta. So these, also like some of these other, Himmler's a Knight of Malta, and also Galen, who the Dulles is like really tight with a lot of these high level Nazis. It's really crazy. So, and he had these kind of ideas of like, he wasn't a believer in egalitarianism at all. He believed that it kind of like a scientific dictatorship of an elite was the optimal. And of course, he's that elite, Dulles. And one of the interesting things, some researcher, back before the internet, you would have calendars, right? You didn't have Calendly. You would have like a written calendar or something on your desk where you'd write down your appointments. And they found Dulles' appointment calendar. And where was he over the weekend where all this stuff happened during the JFK? He was at what he wrote down as the farm, which is a nickname for CIA headquarters.
Jeez, dude.
This is all real. These are all real facts. So Garrison was right. Garrison was on the trail of the assassins. He knew it, and he was right. And everybody kind of ridiculed him. He got the treatment. He had his character destroyed. Threats, the whole bit. But he's a giant. The guy's a freaking American hero. He had him down. And Ferry didn't die right away after the Ferry walked around. There's like I've done shows on Ferry, and he kind of went free. And then Garrison started the kind of criminal indictment. He was the DA of Louisiana, New Orleans. And then all of a sudden, Ferry's going to come and testify. Once these guys are going to come and testify, they're dead. And Ferry died. And they said he had some kind of like brain aneurysm in the back of his head. But it's also consistent with some really big, strong guy coming up behind him and, hitting him as hard as he could in the back of his head. So
wow.
He died with his, It's a fortune. It's one of those many deaths. Like there's a book called Hit List, and it shows how many of these guys died. And it's an interesting tie over too in this film, because when the character Raymond Shaw, who's played by Lawrence Harvey, when he goes to do the final, he's dressed as a priest. And Ferry, and he was a priest. He would dress up in priest outfits. He also did hypnotism and was a Satanist. He had these crazy rituals, and there's elements of like Oswald possibly being involved in all this dark stuff. And the rumor is, which I haven't proved yet, we did that show on Catcher in the Rye, right? Is that in Oswald's library, in his bookshelf, he had a copy of Catcher in the Rye.
It just doesn't stop.
No, actually, when these past few happened, I was looking. I was like, is it gonna pop up?
Yeah, I was waiting for the Catcher.
I think they finally
figured
figured out. They're like, we got to stop allowing these guys to publicize.
Well, now it's an ebook.
Now it's an ebook. Yeah.
But these connections are there. I mean, we can go through. We can do whatever. You want to just roll through the slides real quick?
I would like to go through the slides a little bit, because I think they do a great job. Some of them at highlighting this. What it takes to cause a dissociative state, especially in the changing of appearance. But what do we have here on this one?
This is just the poster of the Manchurian Candidate featuring Sinatra. And I think it suggests like there's underneath like the surface, there's a lot going on. And there's the mechanism, which is the
Queen of Diamonds.
Queen of Diamonds, right. Yeah. And so you have Crooks, mystery, Ruth, mystery, Mangione, very mysterious. This is also one of the Catcher in the Rye. This is Chapman. This guy had a massive personality change.
Yeah.
This is the Aurora James.
I think this is one of the really obvious ones when it comes to like, this guy specifically had an identity issue.
That's the whole theme of like these Catchers in the Rye, is they're morphing of their character to somebody else. Mm-hmm. Usually not a good person. Like identifying with Holden Caulfield is bad. Like you're identifying with a psychopath, like a really horrible person.
I forgot who I was talking to somebody in real life recently where the Catcher in the Rye came up, and it was just this idea of it being this classic piece of literature that you were made to read in school. And I said, this really wasn't that great, and the main character was kind of a piece of shit, wasn't he? And the guy was like,
come to think of it,
was. It wasn't really that good. And it was also like, he sucked. He was a bad guy. Like it was, and then he started asking himself, like, why were we forced to read that in school? And I said, well, that's very interesting. You should ask.
Yeah.
And then I proceeded.
Why is it exposed to 65 million people? I have an assignment for you. Don't read the whole book. Just read the last 3 or 4 chapters, and you'll be freaked out, because you just see him dissociate. You just use that word. Yeah. He's dissociating. A lot of these guys who've been tampered with, their time-space mechanisms are different. Like we usually have standard time-space difference. Holden Caulfield is out of time. He does word thoughts and jumps back into reality that aren't consistent with a linear time-space mechanism in his brain. It's really weird. You'll go, what the hell is this?
Well, that's what I'm talking about when I said that the Gates program is a selection process for people that would be good for these programs, but the public school system has multiple selection processes within it. And I think, that's why the Catcher in the Rye is pushed throughout the public school system. It's like maybe there's something that is triggered in a specific type of child who reads that sort of thing. They get brought up, let's say, on a list of sort, and it could be innocuous to the teacher. It might just be like needs help, problematic student or something like that, or, and is recommended to the school. What is it? Psychologist. There's a specific word for, like, the school therapist. Yeah. And then they get filed away into another list, and the therapist doesn't understand that this is now going into a database that's accessible by these, whoever's running these programs. And if you get put into the right list, they go, okay, here's a potential candidate. And then you look into a couple of more elements of it. Is the father home? Is there a history of trauma? Things of that nature. You know what? This kid might be a great candidate for a gifted and talented program. And what, especially a single mother, is going to say no to their child being, put into a gifted and talented program. So it's like, that's the kind of selection process that I imagine this entire thing unfolds by.
I think you're right. I think that happens more in our society than we're willing to admit. McVeigh said that when he was in the military, this is what he told his sister. Somebody came to him and said, you're going to go through some training, and then we're going to send you off on assignments. Like, it's not going to be real. It's not, their training isn't going to be the real type of thing. And I think that there's actually, like, the elite talent spots. So they have either politicians or people who, like, will do their work who aren't part of the kind of aristocracy. Somebody who comes to mind who was also on the Warren Commission is John J. McCloy. He didn't come from, like, a big wealthy family, but he kind of, something about the Rockefellers, they found something important about him. He's intelligent, and he was a higher level thinker, and he just became part of their group. And it benefited him greatly. Like, he just became part of, like, almost like, I think of, like, the Godfather, where they had the consigliere was the Irish guy, Tom, remember? Who isn't part of the family, but, like, he becomes kind of part of the family. That was John J. McCloy. But also, this talent spotting is in the military and in law. I know from a fact, law schools have a lot of talent spotting. Yeah. They want to winnow out people who may be good for spying or other jobs, or maybe even corruption. So I think that those are also things. Like, there are people, you get talent spotted to go to a big law firm or something like that, but you're also, this guy would make a good James Bond for whatever. It's
interesting because I was at this event this past weekend, and I was talking to somebody there who was a fan of the show, and they were saying that they observed some sort of correlation. I think they were a psychologist, but it was intelligence level to schizophrenia. And that oftentimes schizophrenics will be of considerable intelligence, IQ, and it was just a strange correlation. I mean, I'm wondering if there is a correlation between trauma and intelligence, meaning if you experience childhood trauma, does it somehow unlock a tendency for the brain to engage in higher thinking? Because I could imagine living a pretty, cushy life, you would never have to think that hard about a thing. But as soon as trauma is, injected into an individual's life, well, the brain probably goes into some sort of a much higher survival mechanism, because now it's been subjected to this external threat. And now it has to figure out how to compute a little bit faster to avoid maybe that sort of pattern happening again. So I wonder if there really is, like, the correlation between an individual who is suited for the gifted and talented program and also an individual who is likely to exhibit signs of schizophrenia, thereby also being an individual who is highly programmable, might be higher than we think, and it might just be trauma that does that.
It may be maybe withstanding trauma too, and like coming through is a category. It is interesting that this guy Gittinger was like into personality assessments. He actually laid them out in South America and for all the CIA spies. And that also Timothy Leary, that was what he was involved in, is like categorizing people's personality characteristics. So this kind of systematic scientific, assessment of personality was there in the 50s and 60s, probably still around today.
Oh yeah. But it's definitely still around. Yeah.
I think every public school student gets an IQ test. They get a bunch of weird tests, even when they're in elementary school. At least I remember some strange tests that weren't scored, but yeah, and those papers stay with you. Like, I think they do, but it is weird. It is, it's a little unnerving, actually. Anyway, there's Hinckley, Livelsberger. That's what's his name? Jabbar, who ran over people in New Orleans.
Right.
This is the book cover. There's Condon. That's what he looked like. This is interesting. That's one other cover for the book. You have the shattered Queen of Diamonds, just like shattering somebody's consciousness, somebody's personality. You'll see them shattered. He mentions his hypnosis throughout the book. He also, like, this is his introduction from 1991. Popular notion, nobody could be persuaded under hypnosis to do anything which is inherently abhorrent to him. Reams of research proves this to be untrue. And then he mentions like what goes on in common culture, because continue patriotism, religion, exclusionary society, self-righteousness, tribal innuendo. So these people still kind of do things anyway.
Yeah.
But that's like a picture of Manchuria. So for people who aren't familiar with the geography of the area, Sinatra was also in a film before this in 1954, where he played an assassin of the president with a rifle. Like, the synchronicities are crazy. Yeah, it's called Suddenly. So he like literally, like, I think they hijack a house and wait for the president to drive by him with a rifle.
It's all the same thing. It's all that predictive programming.
Wow. Yeah, crazy. Yeah. So look up Suddenly. This is Sinatra with JFK, good buddies, hanging out. The important symbol of the Manchurian candidate. The whole thing where they're abducted takes place in Korea in 1952. Raymond Shaw gets his Medal of Honor. 77, one of 77. There he is with his Medal of Honor. This first dream of Sinatra happens at 3:11, right? So you've got the number of magic. There's Yen Lo, the woman with a bayonet. He's screaming. He's repeating this kind of post-hypnotic suggestion stuff. They're shooting at you. He's pointing directly at the camera.
Yeah.
This is the other black guy. They found out during the artichoke test that you could put somebody in a hypnotic state through the phone. And so that's what's happening here. Yeah. So this is actually a reflection of reality.
That's the thing that I'm speculating on, is to, like, when we talk about free range ultra victims and it happening at scale, I think frequency is also playing a large part in that. And I would imagine that they're utilizing whatever frequency to be able to pull that off through the phone. But I think that the point of doing this at scale is culture is not our friend. It's an engineered aspect of reality of the lives that we live. And if you can ultra an entire populace, then you can steer the culture very effectively. It used to have to take infiltrating sort of the media, getting your stars in place, and obviously that's still an element of it. Or then you look at like a Weimar, like the Bolsheviks, right? Like you're engineering revolutions over time throughout a place. But I think this is, if you want to engineer a revolution, or if you want to introduce a catastrophe, it would benefit you greatly to first engineer how the public is going to respond to that kind of stimuli. And I think that's what they're doing at scale, is they're completely sort of giving us a scaffolding for how we react to reality.
I think you're right. I think that they learned a lot of techniques. When when Dulles was talking about brain warfare, he was talking about collective and individual effects. So he understands the collective consciousness, subconscious, all that stuff. But anyway, one of the interesting things about Sirhan, who's much like Oswald, a very interesting guy. He was in contact with somebody that he was an amateur radio guy, and he was in contact with somebody called Radio Man. And they think that he might have been getting post-hypnotic suggestions through Radio Man. You ever heard that?
No, that's fascinating.
Like yeah. So he's kept in a hypnotic state on the Queen of Diamonds. Note, he's in a hospital. So many of these guys will be in and out of. Sirhan was in and out of the hospital weird times leading all the way up to RFK. So he's very similar, believe it or not, to Oswald. Yen Lo shows up in New York City. His handler shows up. It's off the charts. There's actually examples of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and Angela Lansbury knows the techniques because her fuddy-duddy husband is not very bright. He can't remember how many communists there are in the United States. So then she trains him to remember 57, and he does this physical thing with the ketchup, and then he remembers Heinz 57. So it's actually a very clever kind of thing that they integrated into the film. So, and there's also this blurring of character. This guy, Iselden or whatever, who's the husband of Angela Lansbury. Angela Lansbury's morphed into the Queen, the evil Red Queen, and they morph him into Abraham Lincoln, the assassinated president, right? And then eventually he gets assassinated. So I don't want to ruin it. But this is where Sinatra discovers that he's actually was in a meeting with like high-level Soviet and Chinese communists.
And that they weren't
it wasn't a black choir.
It wasn't a women's club.
It's starting to figure it out. This is the classical illusion. Sinatra's talking to Lawrence, and he's like, hey, Clytemnestra and this, and Clytemnestra, and I forgot the other guy's name, but they actually end up like shooting. It's like a classical allusion to like somebody getting Orestes and his mother Clytemnestra, and then Orestes avenges the murder of his father by killing his mother, and that's classical kind of Greek illusion. The Queen's important. He sees it. He literally goes and jumps in a lake in Central Park. And then the psychiatrist who we saw from the earlier clip, the military guy, he starts to unravel stuff. So the solitaire, it's identification of human beings, and he's trying to help Sinatra figure stuff out. This is where she wants her steak at 11, cooked in 11 minutes each side. And there she's the Queen, right? So she's dressed as the Queen. And basically in the book, she puts her son into a trance and has with him. It's really dark. Super duper dark. Yeah. So they have.
I feel like our show just continues to bleed one into another from like the Pope being a Nazi youth, and that kind of like leading back to this weird, I don't know, scientific revolution to this Oedipal mother kind of idea. Yeah, Semiramis and Nimrod having with each other is bizarre.
So then his love interest is this woman who he ends up killing, but she has the Queen of Diamonds. She puts him into a trance.
This movie's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great. Sinatra figures it out that the Queen of Diamonds is and so he gets like a magical hand of all Queen of Diamonds and starts talking to Raymond Shaw. Raymond Shaw unfortunately gets away and kills his girlfriend and her dad over a black and white checkerboard.
I was gonna say, on this Masonic floor.
Obviously Masonic floorboard, off of Central Park.
Oh my God.
And then she instructs him to, what she's gonna do is somebody at, of all places, the nomination. That's what RFK was doing. He was at the Democratic nomination at Ambassador Hotel. I think he was either announcing his win. He was running for the nomination in 1968. Anyway, she's instructing her son to the guy who's going to win the nomination so that her husband can skip into power.
Hmm.
And then this is the whole thing where she gets down and dirty with, in the book, they do the deed. And then Raymond Shaw he dresses up as a priest. And then instead of shooting who he's supposed to shoot, he shoots his mother and his stepfather and then kills himself. So it's a tie-in directly to what Dr. Yen Lo said at the hypnosis place in Manchuria, where they have these looped things where they tell people to commit suicide. And so he does that. He finishes it off. And this is kind of like all the 11s and stuff. This is also, somebody mentioned this 7 Days in May at the beginning, like they keyed into my presentation because I included this in to show that this movie didn't happen in a vacuum. It's like 7 Days in May is there, and Strange Love. And then we can go into Sirhan, Radio Man. He was in and out of the hospital for like forever. For like 4 years, he was in and out of the hospital. Just
Do you have an episode on Radio Man?
I could put one together.
Okay. Because I'll tell you the truth. A lot of times, if I'm like, I don't know that subject, I'll go to William Ramsey Investigate, and
well, I do have two on Sirhan. So you can look up Sirhan.
Look at the way he's dressed.
Yeah, this is actually super creepy. Same kind of like
wow,
that is not a common mode of dressing here in 2024. Especially
I wouldn't say Mangione would choose that. And there's Jack Ruby shooting. He's coming up, putting the gun up against the side of Oswald.
Man,
I think he was led to the slaughter. I think Ruby was all around the police and the police office, and he was kind of like the intermediary between the cops and the mob, is my understanding. Like they were at the Carousel Club, and some were corrupt, and they just let him hang around, and then eventually they knew Oswald had to go, and so they tried to kill him multiple times. Like on Friday, they tried to shoot him at the Texas Theater. The gun missed. Like he pulled the gun away, tried to survive, and that was a bunch. So like there were bungled attempts to Oswald. I think that was part of the plan, and so Ruby had to come in and do it.
Wow.
And it's kind of like, I mean, it might be like what happened to Martin Luther King, is that apparently they didn't kill him off the top, but then they put him once they got him to the hospital, they could finish the deed. And I think maybe that's what happened to Oswald too. He was planned to go. Man. I could do a whole nother show on Oswald. Like I've got 30 hours of information on there, but there's like a lot. Like it's mind boggling. But the correlation between this film and the JFK assassination alone is incredible, because you have the same themes behind the Iron Curtain to back to this, to the political figures, to handlers, to strange kind of hospital stays, and then to the final death. It's unnerving. And then the Frankenheimer connection to 7 Days in May and to RFK is also crazy. Like literally, Frankenheimer directs this film, then drives RFK to the Ambassador Hotel where he's killed by a guy who didn't kill him. Sirhan.
Why? Let me ask you, man. Like, because it's not even a doubt in my mind anymore that it's telling the story of what happened. But like, why, in your opinion, why do they have to go through such lengths to do this?
Because then they can never be blamed, and then the blame is on the scapegoat, right? So it's much like they probably study. Even Garrison mentions this correlation between it's such a monumental event, like they're going to blow the head of a president. They had to figure out the way to do it. They'd already been overthrowing governments, right, and infiltrating governments. Italy, Iran, Guatemala, Arbenz, like all these operations were going. And then there are operations after too, Vietnam and Chile. But I think that they had to shield themselves. And they knew that, like, if they were ever busted, like, it would be the end of the functioning government. And it actually permeated through the death of JFK, even to today, but also certainly through the Johnson administration and Nixon too. Nixon's like that Bay of Pigs thing. Like he knew the Bay of Pigs was really it. Like people took it personally. That's why they wanted to kill JFK. So they had to have for all of these deaths, they want to have a scapegoat. And so these are what these people are. They're scapegoats for somebody they want to, but they don't want to take the blame for it. It makes perfect sense. Like, why would you want to commit a crime and get busted for it?
Well,
Man. I was actually reading Leviticus. It was about the scapegoat specifically, which is kind of an interesting concept. I guess biblically, culturally,
and you and absolve yourself of your sins.
No, they sacrifice one and then they take one, they put their sins on it and they let it into the wilderness. Like they just lead it.
Oh, so it's not like the chicken thing?
No, it's a little different. This goat will surely die. But the idea of like leading it astray to die like a weird, confused death is a bit poetic, especially when you're looking at this movie and everything, like all the other actions that are.
Just put our sins in Oswald and
then you tell a bunch of stories and you lead the people to the wilderness.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, they sheep dipped him. They made an intel legend about him that he was a colony. They established it. They probably knew they were gunning for Kennedy at some point. And there was actually, I did a show on another scapegoat who was in Chicago, a guy, but Kennedy kind of got wise not to go to Chicago. And I forgot his name off the top of my head, but he was kind of like an Oswald. And so it's
they probably had so many of those set up.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you were talking about Oswald, like then that's when they sent in Jack Ruby, and it's like, dude, if it wasn't him, it was the next thing.
Yeah,
somebody was going to kill him. He was not going to live that long. They had to.
And if it wasn't, and if he didn't die there in Dallas, JFK would have been somewhere. It was like, like you said, he had no friends, no allies in high places. Everybody was.
They all wanted him dead. All the big boys wanted him dead, and I think there was an attempt in Miami too. There was like rumors of Miami because one of the biggest CIA outposts was in Miami at that time. So then I think that also Johnson, it was really to a benefit of Johnson to become president. He was under investigation. He was butting heads with the Kennedys. And so having him in the wings Johnson lusted for the presidency. That was really his goal in life. So the guys who did this, they knew Johnson was a willing tool. I mean, people blame Johnson. He had the power to cover up, but not to commit the crime. It's too vast of a crime involving too many different people. And he's a kind of a side player. He's kind of like the beneficiary because he was killing people too, man. There was like dead bodies all over Texas because of him. He had his own professional hitman. I think there were 7 deaths. I think even his sister died suspiciously. So it's really rough time. A lot of deaths. 60s was very traumatic. I mean, U.S. history since JFK has been traumatic. But
yeah, well, it's almost like they figured out that trauma is the way to control the public.
Yeah.
And then they just keep
and give them money, keep in line, and don't complain about paying taxes and getting nothing from the government and all that.
Bread, circus, and trauma.
That's the name of my book.
Well, we're at the 2 hour and 10 mark, but before we wrap this up, I have one final question to ask you.
Oh boy,
William.
This is actually I don't know.
I don't know where. Yeah, I don't know what we're gonna get, but this is something that we've taken to asking everybody on their way out. Are you having fun?
I enjoy kind of uncovering the real history, so in that way I would, but I would say the direction the country's going and stuff and the future, I'm not having fun about that. But are you having fun? Why don't I just flip it back on you?
Yeah, look at my shirt, bro. Of course I'm
Yeah, good. Might as well have fun. Might as well enjoy the ride, right?
Because we deal with like so many of these dark topics.
Yeah.
I mean, you more so than us, I think.
Yeah,
you're like
say that's true. Yeah.
You what's his name? We're gonna have him on again. Wow.
Very rude of you.
Yeah, very rude.
I have no idea who you're talking about, so I'm absolved.
The Underclass podcast. Austin.
Oh, Austin Picard.
Yeah.
I love Austin.
Wow, how did I just had a brain fart there?
Unbelievable.
you guys are really digging into the details of this stuff, and it's super dark. But
Yeah.
you gotta have fun, man. You gotta have some fun with it.
Well,
Otherwise, it's just
for me, I was, it was when I started on conspiracy, I was a teenager. I think when you're younger, you're very like easily scared. You know what I mean? Like you're younger and you don't have like the grounding that an adult has. And so I was like really scared when I was young. And I went through this phase of like, a number of years where I was really scared, and I was warning people, and I thought all these things were going to come to pass, and they in some ways did, and in other ways didn't. But I realized that I sort of like changed my psychology on how I analyze these things. And comedy, I know it sounds crass to even inject comedy into any of these things, but it is, it's like gallows humor. You know what I mean? It's like, is it crass for a man who is on death's door to crack jokes about his coming death? I don't know, but it certainly helps swallow the pill. So, so outside of that, I would agree with you, William, where it's like, I enjoy learning the truth, and the truth you realize that life is much more fantastical than what we are conventionally told. And in that way, there's fun in that as well. So, and then, making content and talking to people like you, and then, it bleeds into other things like live events. Yeah, I am having fun. I think if I stopped and I analyzed too much, I would not. But if I stay in this moment, I can have fun as long as I live in the present.
Good. I think that shows like this inform people about how much their history is fake, and how the Mockingbird media can just make stuff up to get away with people in power. And so those people in power can keep and maintain power. Like, I think the military industrial complex heavily involved in the death of JFK and benefiting, right? And so they made money on Vietnam and all these stupid wars that have bled the public dry. We live like third worlders. Go to China. It looks freaking great. They're not fighting it. They're not fighting constant wars like the U.S. Totally different civilization. Yeah. That's why I go back to culture and civilization. Like, is this really the optimal culture and civilization you want? Bombing and genociding kids in Gaza and stuff. So
getting on the subway.
On the subway. Your main urban centers look like Mad Max or Escape from New York.
Yeah.
There's just infinity third worlders who don't give a about your culture, your background. You see you as just an economic unit, somebody to steal from. So, I mean, those are valid concerns. So I think that these are the antidote to those things. It's like, hey, we can do better. We can do different. And you don't have to believe this garbage was incredible outlay of mind control. Like, it is off the charts what they pulled off. Constantly doing it. Like, I mean, you and Cameron and McGill, 250,000 of the same phrase over and over. Your mom hates you. Your mom hates you. Then he puts you to sleep, then give you some LSD, then some curare, then wake you up and keep you asleep for 87 days. Dude, you are going to be a different personality.
Listen, I gotta run, boys. All right, man. I hope you have fun next time.
I have fun. Like, when I go through this every time, like, I see different elements, and also the conversations are different on the host. So it's almost like a jazz performance, because people see different things or different aspects or elements, or even the comments are different. So it's always interesting for me.
William Ramsey Investigates, correct?
Yeah, William Ramsey Investigates on podcast, Patreon. I got all my stuff without ads, and then 5 books and 5 documentaries on my Patreon as well.
Always a pleasure to have you, William.
Guys, thanks for having me back. Thank you, and really appreciate it, and great to talk with you again.
Absolutely.
Watch the whole movie. Watch the whole movie now and check it out.
I might watch it tonight.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
But guys, until next time, Oh, go ahead, William.
I think it's free on. I think there's a link.
Maybe we can watch it. If you come over for dinner, we'll put it on.
Wikipedia.
We'll subject the kids to it.
Okay, I'll have my kids watch it. Until next time, guys, don't forget to obey, submit, and comply. We'll see you.
The greatest hypnotist on planet Earth is a oblong box in the corner of the room. It is constantly telling us what to believe is real. You can persuade them that what they see with their eyes is what there is to see. You can't. Because they'll laugh in the face of an explanation that portrays the bigger picture of what's happening. And they have.